right, Mars mission. Give me a go, no-go for launch. Booster.
Go flight.
Retro.
Go flight.
Mission control, we are ready.
10, 9, 8, 7.
Sir. It's the sponsor. Data shows we need to make the logo bigger.
Thanks, mission control, we are ready. Again.
9, 8, 7, 6.
Sir. It's the sponsors again. Data shows millennials don't like the color. And we need a hashtag.
10, 9, 8, 7.
What? Search data shows Mars is no longer trending? They want to send them to Pluto.
Pluto?
プルードAUSAってそれ惑星じゃないだろ
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What happened?
Sorry, guys. They burnt up their budget. We have to push the launch to Q4.
Just a little background on Adobe. It's been a varied path. We started out as PostScript as a way to develop graphics that you could print, which is a novel approach that we obviously have tremendous value in today, but it all started from the two gentlemen that just began to find a way that they wanted to print documents. And over the years, we've acquired more companies, and we're well known in the creative space, but over the time, we've also purchased, acquired, and invested in other technologies that made us the leader in experience management. And what that means is we're able to reach out through TV ad space, the social media space, the marketing space, analytics, all along the path. We've made more acquisitions to help Adobe grow, but also make us more effective. But our tagline is changing the world through digital experiences. And the way we do this is we're well known in our DNA for the content that we produce through all of the well-known products like Photoshop and Illustrator. But we're also not known a great deal for all the data and the way that we process that. But what Adobe finds in its strength is we bring those two together, the content and the data, to make sure that's a better experience. And we do that through 3 different clouds. We have the Creative Cloud, the Document Cloud, and the Experience Cloud. And I'm going to go into some more detail on the Experience Cloud today. But just to give you an idea of how those line up, what you might be familiar with of what we do is on the left there with the Creative Cloud. All those well-known tools, Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Adobe Premiere. And obviously what the government's well known for is Acrobat and our Document Cloud services. And then what we have tremendous market capability in, and we're the leader in across Gartner and Forrester and all the other analysts, is our Experience Cloud, which breaks down to our ability to do marketing, analytics, and advertising. And of course, just like everybody else has Watson or Cortana or Alexa, we have our own AI, and it's called Sensei. And this is the point where I would ask everybody to whisper it, Adobe Sensei, because that's how we call it there. But that's basically the computations behind how we do all of those creative and all those marketing things. So everybody has their own strength with their AI. IBM has its Watson that it can do complex computations, do medical evaluations. At Adobe, we have 3 areas of creativity or computations with our AI. We have the computational creativity for the millions of things that we've created over the years. So we're able to use Photoshop to automatically add smiles and changes because we understand the anatomy and structure of the face. We can make things on the fly through that type of artificial intelligence. We also have experience intelligence because we process trillions of transactions. We understand human behavior online, especially very well. And the last thing is content. Since we do process so much content, especially through our forms engine, we've processed millions and millions of forms, so now that we can automatically create forms on the fly from flat files just by converting that through our artificial intelligence. So I have more than 100 trillion up here because we also process the most transactions of any industry in the world when it comes to commerce and retail. But what that equates to is there's trillions and trillions of transactions. About 80% of every dollar spent in the US goes through Adobe servers. So we understand what people purchase, how they purchase, what they're doing, and when very well. So we're able to use predictive analysis to know what the next steps are going to be. So if we put that into comparison with the Consumer Price Index, it measures about 83,000 products bi-monthly. Adobe measures about 2.5 million products products every day. So we're able to predict what the cost of milk is going to be, which toys are going to be out of stock on Black Friday, or what the company is going to actually take in revenue over the next month, just based on human behavior. So that goes from everything from entertainment to finance to all the different categories of how those transactions affect. But what makes all these transactions work are experiences, and we know that experiences matter more than ever. Experiences for government matter more than ever, and so I put this up there because what we feel makes a good experience are four things. It has to be compelling, personal, useful, and everywhere. And I have these examples up there with Deadpool, which is fully produced by Adobe products, so there's an entertainment space. We have HBO, which runs our digital rights management to make sure that right people are getting access to the content that they paid for and they can't pirate it. We have signatures that allow people to do business processing, and then we also have sports entertainment that we provide as well. But if you look at that from a government perspective, we also have to think about the four elements of compelling, personal, useful, and everywhere. Everything from law enforcement to people that do inspections on different facilities, to people that have to do analysis, to people that have to just interact and do the business of government. They still need to keep these four things in mind. And so I put this up as an example. If we think about experiences, this is the Apollo guidance computer. It weighed about 70 pounds. It had 28 volts. It was 2 feet wide, and it took us to the moon. Today we have the iPhone 6, or even greater. It weighs just a fraction of that, and it's 120 million times more powerful than the Apollo guidance computer. Plus, it has a temperature sensor and humidity sensor, and it can tell you if your breath alcohol level is too great to drive. So it does tremendous things. The reason I bring this up is not only to show in the short period of time of how we've advanced in technology, is that we're still using technology from the Apollo guidance computer to power a lot of our government systems today. Right, just until last year, I believe we were using 8-inch floppies in the nuclear silos. So we still have a resistance to change because we've spent a lot on that technical debt in the government and the military, and it's hard to get rid of it. But it's important to get rid of it because they talk about Moore's Law, which computing power doubles about every 2 years. At Adobe, we have what we call the law of experiences, where we estimate that the consumer's expectations of the experience they get double about every year. So if you think about it, we have cars that drive themselves, fridges that can tell you when your eggs are stale, everything that you can imagine. Every time we have a new experience, that becomes our new baseline of what we expect. And so that's no different when it comes to military operating a vehicle or running a guidance system or just processing human resources, payroll information. Those level of expectations are now raised because the rest of the world has that. And so I bring this up as an example of how those experiences changed. This was the Pope in 2005 when it was being announced. This is at the St. Peter's Basilica. This is what the experience looked like. If we fast forward just 8 years later, this is what that same experience looked like when the Pope came in to his new role. So only 8 years, less than a decade passed, and you can see the tremendous change in how people expected that experience to be. They wanted to capture it, they wanted to share it, they wanted to witness it, so much so that they missed the event by recording it on their device. But that's because experiences change. And I bring this up too for experiences because this is a representation of all the different possible screen combinations of an Android device. So if you're trying to keep up with the law of changes and expectations, it's maddening to try and develop a system that can do all this manually. So you have to be able to keep up with experiences. And so I bring this up. Who knows what AR stands for? Jordan? It actually stands for alternate reality in this case. So if we think about alternate reality, I am a recovering government executive. I worked in the Pentagon for a number of years. And I had a certain level of expectations at home. When I get to the building, I have a completely different set of expectations when it comes to getting online, being able to get to a website, actually being able to do something quickly on our IT systems. So there's a different set of reality. And so I bring this up as a forms experience. This is how typically government thinks we should expect a forms experience to be. Then it starts to feel a little bit more like this, and then it actually feels like this, right? That's how we usually experience forms. And I call it the F word because that's the government forms version of the trouble that we have. So that's the experience that people have come to expect. And just think about joining the military or filling out anything, it requires a form. So much so that the form becomes the goal, not what does the form get me? Does it get me to join? Does it get me a new security clearance? Does it get me to fill out my, complete my ethics so that I'm safe? No, it's just to fill out the form. That became the exercise. And so I put this up there if you've ever seen Nike online or Nike.com and you've gone to design your shoe, and you can pick the size, the color, and the style of the shoe, and you can spin it around and you can interact with it. All that is a form that you filled out that's represented in a visually different way. You have to think about the form as something other than a flat piece of paper. So another good example in the government is just filling out for services, or you're signing up for Military One Source, or you're trying to get some other thing accomplished in the government. It works fairly well on a lot of systems up until the point that you have to actually do something with the form on your mobile device. And at that point, you're usually required to go find a printer, print it out, sign it, and fax it back to somebody. So if you reimagine that flat file as a series of transactions, this is what child eligibility and child support looks like. A good example is this, the state of Arizona, what we did, something similar for them. So you can automatically fill out the exact same information that's on that form in a series of steps to get you to the end result. In this case, doing an assessment whether you qualify for those services. Another good example is filling out your taxes. Many of us use TurboTax. The goal of filling out TurboTax is not to fill out TurboTax, it is to file your taxes. And you can, at the end, print out the 1040 if you want to, but you don't have to, because all you did was a series of transactions to accomplish a goal. That's what forms are. It's part of the first reimagining experience. The next one is recruiting, speaking of forms. The old way, and since I'm also in the Marine Corps, so I got to be careful how I announce that here, but joining the Marines back in the day, and here it said basically you can just call or visit your recruiting center. That's how easy it was, right? Oh, did you give me the high sign? Am I out of time?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. So, and that was yesterday. But today we have much cooler things that people want to be able to do. So you have to fish from the same pond as everybody else, like IBM or Microsoft. They all want the same people as well, and they have all of these different things that they have to compete with to find new people. So it's all about that experience. So we also power the Go Army recruiting website with the ability to do analytics on that platform. And if we look at that same experience, the Marine Corps just decided to use Adobe to power their recruiting experience for their front end so that they can find, locate, and engage with the right people so that they can join the Marine Corps. But this is reimagining how that experience should happen, how people expect that experience to be, so that it's a more engaging, interactive way for them to find out more information, to become interested in and take the next steps to do what they need to join the Marine Corps. And so it's about change. And I have a little story about Sam Stavisky. Back in the day in World War II, they needed reporters to cover the war. They had a really hard time finding reporters to do that. So General Denig in the Marine Corps said, I've got a way to fix that. Anybody that wants to go serve in the military that wasn't able to, you can come on as a reporter and we'll send you over there to cover the fight. So Sam could not get in the Marine Corps. He had bad vision, but he took the chance and he went over and covered tremendous amounts of World War II Medal of Honor winners and tremendous battles. And he wrote everything down and sent it all back and didn't worry about the filters. And I bring that up because Sam did a great job of telling impactful stories that he could get out through the media to thousands of people. Today, we can use one platform to tell that story to millions. So it's tremendous in just reimagining how that change happens. So I'd share a little other story about motivation and rethinking how content should work. So this is an example of Marines Magazine. It's a typical digital version of that magazine, but it was built on Adobe's platform. What it also allows, though, is embedding of content. And so in this case, there's a slow motion video of a round coming out of the chamber, going down range, striking a target. The value that it provides is that it makes someone pause and engage with that content and want to read more, want to subscribe, feel that they're connected to the content. You can't do that on flat information, so now you can do that and change that experience digitally. And you can do other things too, just by, in this case, just using the accelerometer in the device to make the weapon move for no other purpose than for somebody to say, that's pretty cool, and share it with someone else so that they can have that same experience, which you fulfilled your mission of being able to do mass communications. Some other examples just to tie into the fact of changing those experiences is thinking about technology. LAX was a good example of this. They had a terminal where they would have cleaning crews or maintenance crews go in and shut down different bathrooms, but they had no way to tell each other when they were doing it, so they could potentially shut down an entire terminal's worth of activity because they had no way to intercommunicate. They used Adobe's tools to connect those operations on the back end through mobile devices, so now that they could get alerts and details to know when that facility was shut down, when those different parts were brought up, so they could become more effective. Similar things with Amtrak, but I also wanted to bring up the Navy's explosive ordnance disposal. They are using the same ideas of changing technology to the way they do training and learning for their EOD technicians. They had the case where if people started using different colored wires or different configurations on IEDs, they would have to change the training manual, print it on a CD, and then mail that out to all the different EOD locations around the world. Now they can do that digitally, immediately online through the online training management tool that they're using from Adobe to be able to deliver that in real time. So it not only keeps them safer, but it's a self-learning environment. So you don't have to come and do the hot wash and the after action and the learning report so that you can get that information out. It's immediately shared. It's also about data. How many have I showed this to before? Have you seen this, Jordan? So this is a word cloud of the conversations around the Arab Spring. Were you part of this word cloud, Wes? So on the right, you see the conversations in red that were in Arabic. The ones in the left in blue are in English. The ones in the middle are in the process of being translated on the fly. The size of the bubble is the size of the conversation, and the millions of tiny threads in between are the connections between all those people. So if you zoomed in, you could see where all these connections are, and you would realize that the people out on the far left in the English-speaking territory are the places like the State Department that are relatively disconnected and unaware of the larger conversation, which is alarming, but it's also interesting that we can visualize this. But this visualization took months of somebody culling through spreadsheets of data and building a visual model for it. Now with technology, with what Adobe has, we can do that in near real time with our analytics tools. This is another example of those same kind of interactions happening on a document. You can see where documents are being shared, who is opening them, how many times they've been opened, who might be a potential threat, which document actually might be more useful, whatever it is you're trying to gather, but you can get those real-time analytics to the point where if you want to just find out if maybe there's an insider threat, maybe Steve here only opens a few documents a day and you get an alert that Steve is now printing thousands of documents, or he's saving thousands of documents. And what if Steve's not even in the building? Now you know that there may be a potential risk or a violation. You can use all that with analytics. You can also use the power of our AI and analytics to tie together other kinds of visual information that may not be tagged. So I don't know if the video down on the bottom left is playing, but up in the top left, you'll see different examples of cameras and ingest feeds. You can imagine this could be drones, which are pulling in information. The Adobe's creative AI can automatically determine from the pixels and the keyframes in the images and add keywords to those frames so that you can search all the content without ever having tagged it. Or in the case of the video down below, you can use automatic redaction to follow this guy around, and you block out the guy that's not the bad guy, and that way you can focus on who's important, but you also maintain privacy. Now you have records that you can release under FOIA without doing a lot of extra work. It helps you with being able to process that information at scale. And then there's also the ability to track that information or control it once it's gone out. So in the case of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, think about the ability to process or track contracts when they go. It's uncanny how some of the Chinese equipment looks just like U.S. equipment because they have gotten a hold of diagrams or IP. If you can protect that and lock it down and track where it's gone, just like the Army Corps of Engineers does with their contracts, they can destroy those contracts after the bid period has expired. They can update those on the fly without having people to re-download them. Lots of tremendous capabilities by being able to lock those down with content security. And another example is the California Bureau of Prisons. They had a lot of cases where celebrities were getting arrested and people would like to know all the salacious details about their arrest. So they would find a way to get those documents and they would share them. So California Bureau of Prisons locked those down now with digital rights management. So no longer can anybody find out how many times Lindsay Lohan has been in the prison. So great capabilities with content security. And also comes with the ability to process using forensic data. Another good story here with a medicine bottle. We also do tremendous work with the National Centers for Missing and Exploited Children. This is a case where there was bad activity happening with a child. We were able to get a picture of somebody posted online that was associated with some of that bad information, and we're able to zoom in and get a partial prescription number, and we're able to actually pull a fingerprint off of that bottle using some of Adobe's tools. And found the guy that did it. Now he's serving 110 years in prison. So tremendous good that you can do just by being able to process information. But you could use it to do battle damage assessment, threat analysis and intel, use it for operations or just situational awareness, or just to do personalized content. So I mentioned that we have the ability to do AI indexing of images. This is an example of one that was ingested. It's a picture of Niagara Falls, but we didn't tag it. We just ingested it. The AI automatically picked up on the fact that it had water, it was nature, it was Niagara, and it was Niagara Falls, automatically added those tags without any human intervention. So if we think about all of the images that the government has in store, this is a tremendous power for them to use as well. So this one is an example of some more data processing that we have. If you look at the picture in the top right, it's a picture of a car that's going past a security camera. We're able to use Adobe's tools on the bottom right to actually use perspective warp, and we could change the perspective of that license plate to actually make it readable. So as it's driving past a security camera, you're still able to figure out who's in that car, or at least what the license plate number is, without having had a head-on picture at all. I'm going to skip this one in the interest of time. And then the last section is talking about personalization. Again, in the same Marine Corps theme. I used to be the webmaster for the Marine Corps, and this is what the site looked like back a couple of decades ago. But it's typical of many government sites today. It's really just a list of lists. Okay. It's a list of lists because that's what we thought was important. That's what we figured people wanted to read. And we put things up there that somebody or a general said, this has to go on the front page. So that's how we did content management back in the day. So if we think about how it's done today, though, anytime you go to a website today, chances are there's a lot of things going on all throughout your visit there that happens in just a millisecond. It's listening to your social feeds, where you came from, what you searched for before you got to the site. It's predicting what you want to see. It's assembling all that content, and it's delivering it all in the last millisecond. So it doesn't have to be that list of lists anymore of what we think is important. It's delivering what the customer finds important based on what they've looked for. So if we think of a commercial example, let's take REI. If it's the springtime, or let's just say it's the middle of winter here in DC, and you go to REI and you want to find something to buy, REI can personalize that because it knows you came from the Washington area in the winter, and it can serve you up pictures of snow gear that you should buy. If you're in California on that very same day, you would want to not see pictures of snow and things you can buy for cold. You might want to see surfboards. The site should be able to pick up on that based on your potential persona, where you're located, the time of day, the time zone you're in, and deliver that best experience for you. So you're getting the best experience, and so is the commercial vendor. So here's another example. Fossil watch. You're able to go through here just like that Nike example I mentioned before, but I can fill out a number of steps. I can hit preview, and I automatically see what it is that I wanted, personal to me. The difference is really no difference on the back end. I'm still filling in the same information that I would have on a form, or that I would have clicked on 3 drop downs and picked a color in a selection. The difference is that I'm able to get a personal experience directly for myself just by what I filled out. And I think this is my last example. Thank you very much.